There is little disagreement over the help that referencing a visual tuner such as tonal energy or tunable can provide when working on intonation. However, in a real performance situation, there's no time for visual aids, and you're required to listen and adapt to your colleagues as the performance unfolds. So to this end, I would highly recommend also incorporating an audible drone into your intonation work, and even consider making this your go-to fix for intonation issues you may be encountering. When performing, it's of course important that your pitch is able to follow your ear, so it would only make sense to practice in this way as well. Many leading tuning apps have the ability to produce a drone, so you probably already have an app on your phone you can use. But my personal favorite device to use for this activity is my Dr. Beat. It's both loud, which is helpful. It's also really quick to adjust to different notes. When listening to your drone, it's really important you do so without headphones so that you can hear the way your instrument directly interacts with the sound waves of the drone. You may consider plugging a speaker in to help amplify the drone, but please be careful with Bluetooth connections. I've found that sometimes pitch can actually get distorted as much as 5 or 10 cents when connected to Bluetooth, which defeats the purpose of tuning to that out-of-tune drone. Once you have your drone producing device figured out, the next step is to figure out what note to turn on. You have 12 to choose from. And so this tends to work better with tonal passages because the answer is a little more clear. But you can apply this to atonal music and just, be very thorough with that as well. First, figure out what key the music is in. This is helpful to know anyway and would usually give you a good guess as to which note to drone. So once I've determined the key, I'm going to start by droning the tonic. And so the tonic is also known as the home note or the first scale degree of the key you're playing in, or as do if you're familiar with solfege. And so I'm in a second going to turn on that note. You'll hear that sound. And then I'm going to play through the music at a free tempo. So this is not the time to work on rhythm or technique. You're purely listening for intonation. And at that free tempo, I'm going to stop every time I get to that tonic note. So in this case, it's a concert A flat is the tonic note. You'll hear me stop every time I get to that note. And I'm going to be listening to match the drone. Remember, you want to try to slow down and then ultimately remove any waves you hear by adjusting to the drone. And so what I'll find with this, the first time students do it, they're really kind of tight and they just want to get through it. This will take a while, and that's okay. You need to kind of, take your time and let each note sit right before you move on. So anyway, here's the first time through. I'm tuning my concert A flats to the drone's A flats for the first time through the exercise. Isolating any of those concert A flats. Once I've stabilized my pitch to the tonic, I'm also going to check the dominant note against that tonic. And so the dominant is the 5th scale degree of the key you're playing in, or so, if you're familiar with solfege. The reason I'm going to do the dominant next is you'll find it's very common in a lot of tonal music to have a lot of tonic and a lot of dominant in a melody. Also, it's one of the notes that can be most audibly out of tune if you haven't taken the time to work on it. So again, I'm going to do it in a free tempo, and I'm going to stop every time I get to that note, listening for the drone to match. And at this point, the drone is going to be droning an A flat still. I'm listening for my dominant to match that, even though it's a concert E flat. I'm listening for that in-tuned fifth sound, which should still sound waveless like a unison if it's correct. Again, isolating the dominant that time. Finally, I'm going to go through and check the third. In this case, it would be a minor third, and the sixth against this drone to check that those pitches are matching as well. But it's always good to start with the tonic first and the dominant, and you'll start to get acclimated to the key before you move on. The reason this is so helpful is that playing and fitting within an orchestra requires a great deal of attention to pitch. And so preparing in this way, listening to the drone, will enable you to adapt and match your colleagues. Sometimes in performance, every note is not at zero, and it's not that the person you're playing with is out of tune, it's just that groups will naturally kind of rise and fall within a pitch level, and so you don't want to be just stuck by what you're used to seeing. You want to be able to adjust to something you're hearing. And even better is if you can do this daily for a few weeks. You'll quickly start to intone proper relative pitch. You won't hear the out of tune notes on your instrument as being correct anymore. You'll hear them as being out of tune. That will help you kind of in the long run as well, not just on the specific piece you're working on. And finally, make sure and ask the orchestra you're performing with if they tune to A440 or another tuning standard. If you're used to performing with bands, when you go play with orchestras, some of them are at 440, which a lot of bands use, but you'll also find that orchestras will perform at 441 or 442, and you're going to want to set up your drone to match that.